Well, hopefully this will be a short video. A lot of people think that, not a lot of people, but one of the criticisms you kind of get about being a libertarian is it's all this theoretical stuff and it has no practical significance and you're not going to get the society you want. And that may or may not be true, but one thing though that I think is wrong about that whole line of reasoning is it actually is of extreme practical importance. And this manifests in a couple ways, and this isn't going to be a video about all those ways, but just for instance, I find that I've been very satisfied with the types of investments that I've made. I'm not an investment expert. I don't spend a lot of time, but just my ideas about time preference and about the government and what it does to the economy, so have given me a degree of insight that people who spend a lot of time, even doing things like watching MSNBC or CNBC or just reading the Wall Street Journal usually don't have. It's not to say everybody who's not a libertarian is a dunce, because that's not true at all. But for instance, when the crash happened in 2008, I was at work and all the adults, I was just out of college, but all the people who were double my age, my parents, my relatives, my coworkers, who were all in their 40s, 50s, and older, they were all losing huge amounts of money, and yet I was making money, even though I had fairly modest investments. But another area is libertarians understand how frickin' dangerous the police can be, and the government generally. We know that at the very least there's a potential for government agents to be dangerous and to be destructive. That doesn't mean that they always necessarily are. If you call the police, I think it's akin to basically opening Pandora's box. They may help or they may hurt, and you just don't know, which means you should be very, very careful about ever doing it. And non-libertarians are handicapped in the sense that they either don't see the state as dangerous or they even see it as ambivalent or benevolent. Which is even worse, and then you're just really setting yourself up not only for disappointment but for destruction. So we could go on and on and on about the anecdotes here, but personally I do as much as I can to avoid contact, especially with the police. But with most government institutions, it's impossible to stay around all of them. If you drive on a road and there's a toll, there's nothing you can do. You have to renew your driver's license. There's not a lot you can do. You need to transfer title, make a purchase. Sometimes when you're employed, you have to fill out tax paperwork. I haven't had a job like that in years now, but it's something that not everyone has the luxury of getting a job where you get paid directly by your employer without filling out paperwork or anything. But for instance, I tend to do everything I can to avoid, say, getting pulled over by the cops. Now, I don't do drugs, I don't drink, I've never had a drink of alcohol in my life, I don't smoke cigarettes, I'll never have any drugs in my car. Everything that I'll have will be legal. I will have firearms that sometimes aren't legally stored, but it's usually not that big a deal. I usually hide them pretty well. But I don't want to be pulled over. I don't want to have to deal with them because they can be capricious, and they can really ruin your day, even your life. And I've been pretty successful. Once or twice I've been pulled over. I was actually, the last time I was pulled over, which was the first time in many years, I think I've been pulled over my entire life, twice. The second time, I just driven 30 hours across the country from Utah to Michigan. As soon as I got to Michigan, a state trooper pulled me over. I was going 60 and a 75 on the freeway, and he pulled me over because the tops of my windows were tinted, which they were so untinted that I didn't even realize that they were tinted. It's not like a black ghetto window that, with a boombox going. It was slightly darkened around the edges. And this guy was just sitting under a bridge, literally like a troll, pulling people over. And he comes up and he chides me for not knowing the law, and I asked him if I had been hurting anybody, and he said, No, that's not the point. Wore glasses, writes me a ticket for $180, and then he says, have a nice day, and he jumps in his car, and before I even turn the key, he has his lights on again, pulling over somebody else. The motherfucker just sits there all day, literally, pulling he can flash anybody and walk up and make something up and write a ticket. And you know, you have to wonder about a person like that. Did he think as a kid that that's what he wanted to do? I highly doubt it. But it's just a job to him. Pardon me. It's just a job to him. He probably has a quota. He's going to make it. But he has discretion. He could be a nice day. But instead, he ruins my day after driving all these hours. Welcome home. Thanks a lot. You know, but I expect that from the police, but other people don't. So one of my coworkers, I've been working in West Virginia all last winter. My boss had me go out to Utah. When he had me go to Utah, he brought somebody. Actually, this is retarded, but he had somebody who lived in Utah, or actually Grand Junction, Colorado, very close to Utah, go and replace me in West Virginia, which is really stupid. But the guy he was replacing, the guy who was replacing me wasn't very experienced, and I guess the job we were doing in Utah needed somebody who knew a little bit more. Anyway, as soon as I got to Utah, I got a call from the old guy I had been working with in West Virginia who said, hey, we have a problem. Me and the new guy basically went out to the bar, and we ended up in the hotel room with a hooker, and the hooker tried to rob us, and we called the cops. And bottom line is, it wasn't the hooker who got arrested, it was the new guy who got arrested and was charged with, of all things, kidnapping a hooker. They both told different stories, and I'm not exactly sure what happened. I didn't really pay attention because I was in Utah, but after I came back to West Virginia in December, I've been working with the guy who's been charged with these crimes. And he's, you know, he's a good guy, but he's not a libertarian. He does not have a concept of the capriciousness of government. What happened, he says it wasn't his hooker, it was the other guy's hooker. Either way, one of them had a hooker. They had the hooker in the hotel room, and the hooker tried to rob them, which is, what did you expect to happen? I'm not saying all hookers are robbers. It's just, you don't know a woman, you take her to your hotel room. You're a bunch of basically migrant workers. What do you think is going to happen? Anyway, he had a Mosin Nagant rifle. I mean, who travels with a Mosin Nagant rifle? Not that I'm against traveling with guns, but it's a Soviet gun. Come on. I chided him for that. I was like, why do you have a Russian gun? Come on. Have a Remington or something. Anyway, he pulled out the Mosin Nagant on her and basically said she could not leave the hotel room until the police called. And then he called the cops and had the cops come. And the cops come and they decide that you know, he wasn't being, he thinks that he's being like a deputy here, that he's being he's making a citizen's arrest and helping the cops, and he's apprehending a robber, and they just come and see, like, I don't know what exactly their thinking was, but anyway, he's the one who went to jail. He got charged with, well, they said they were going to charge him with kidnapping, which carries a mandatory life sentence in this state. And this is the whole plea thing. They basically were going to charge him with that unless he would plead guilty, which he eventually did. And now I have to pay for this because we live in this apartment, this wonderful apartment you see. This is my room in it. Each have our own room that our company rents for us to live in. He is now going to be under house arrest for 1 year for kidnapping a hooker, although he didn't really kidnap a hooker. I mean, that's the other thing. What an absurd to say that what he did was kidnapping a hooker is there's nothing about justice in that at all. Even if you want to say that he did something wrong, it wouldn't be kidnapping. Anyway, he's lost his right to vote. That's no big deal. Who cares about that? He's lost his right to ever own a gun. That is a big deal. He can't travel. Random drug tests. Anyway, they under house arrest. They can now search his house, aka where I spend most of my time. I live here when I'm at work, which is most of the time. This isn't my actual home though, but I have stuff here. I have guns here. I don't have any drugs here or anything, but I have guns. I have a whole bunch of anti-government books, which I don't think that they would look. But who knows? They could come in here any time and search this place. And originally, I had been, telling them, look, I don't want the cops here. If they come here and I'm here, I'm not opening the door, and I'm going to say they need a warrant. And if they're going to say, well, we're here to search so-and-so who lives here who has, I'm going to say, I don't know. I'm not saying anything. I don't confirm or deny. Get a warrant. Come back. The door's locked. Like, and if they do come here and I'm not here, which is likely because I'm basically gone 12 hours a day during the day, and I don't think bureaucrats are going to stay up past, they're not going to get up. I mean, I leave here at 5 a.m. and I get back around 7. Bureaucrats that work for the government, unless they're stormtroopers, are going to be out of those times. They're going to search this place, and I don't want them going through my stuff. I don't want them invading my privacy. I didn't do anything. I mean, I'm not. They don't even know who I am, and yet my whatever pretense of privacy or whatever I have is gone because of what this guy did or didn't do or whatever. I mean, I don't actually know what literally happened. I know what he's been charged with, what he pled guilty to. I mean, the guy's a fucking moron for doing it. But I mean, I think I've heard it said so many times, do not call the police. This guy should have made I mean, he would have been better off to force this hooker to give the money back. Apparently she hit it up her, well, I can't think of a snazzy way to say it. She put it in her vagina, apparently. But he should have forced her to give it back, and then he should have thrown her out on the street, and then it would have been her word against his, and like she's going to go say, I was trying to rob somebody, and he took the money back. She would have just gone home and been freaked out. He didn't do that. He thought that he could just call the police and they'd ride into the rescue like the 7th Cavalry fighting the Apaches or something, and they'd whisk her off to jail and probably shake hands with him and say, good job, nice gun, let's go have a beer together. Well, no, they put him in cuffs, took him to prison. He was in jail, and that's originally how I heard about it. Is his partner, my former partner, called and said, I am alone now, which is hard because we're on our work. There always has to be one of us at work all the time. So for one person to be gone means the other person will literally have to be at work continuously, nonstop, for days, which is a really horrible situation to be in because where we work is not set up for someone to be at for days and days. And thrown in jail, and then of course Justice Swift. I mean, so when did that happen? That happened last July, the very beginning of July, before the 4th of July, and he just a week ago finally pled guilty, and his house arrest, which is and so it's funny. So we're in West Virginia, so he is stuck in West Virginia when he has a wife and kids in Colorado. Because he pulled a gun on a hooker who was robbing him. And I mean, I believe that the hooker was robbing somebody. I don't know who actually solicited the hooker, but I'm a libertarian. I don't care who solicited a hooker. That's not a crime. The hooker robbing him is a crime, and I think that part of the story is accurate. I don't see any reason why he would have pulled a gun on a hooker. I mean, why would you solicit a hooker and then pull a gun on her? Force her to, I mean, that doesn't make sense, and that's not been alleged as far as I can tell. So I'm mad because they don't care. The government doesn't care that I'm innocent, that I've never even been charged with anything. All they care about is they're going after him, and the fact that they're inconveniencing me, that they're invading on if they're committing trespass against me, as Butler Schaefer would say. They don't give a damn about that because they're the government, and they're picking on that slave. But you know what? My rights are just. They're just waiting to be annulled at their discretion anyway, so why not now? So I don't know what I'm going to do about all my guns. I don't keep all my guns at work, but I keep some of them. And I don't want them to see them. I don't want them to touch them. Apparently, it's illegal for them to be here. I've never seen this law. Because my former meth head, now felon, because he used to be a meth head, although he's not now, co-worker, has been convicted of something. Now all of a sudden there are prohibitions that apply to me. This is just completely asinine. Of course, it's also totally silly. As if he doesn't have access to firearms. As if he wanted to commit a crime, this would mean anything in preventing him from doing that. It's absolutely ridiculous. Whether I had all my guns here or not, he would have access to firearms one way or another if he was intent on doing anything. And I feel, I mean, This guy's not a libertarian. He's not the best conversationalist, but I feel comfortable with him. He has basically full access to my property anyway. We share the house. We don't have locks on our internal doors. And, I mean, he has access to my computer, my guns, my money, even my car, because I have to leave my car at work and he has my key. And, you know, he never does anything wrong. And I trust him with everything. But that doesn't matter. The government doesn't care about that. So basically, he called 911 and basically brought a world of hurt on him. That's, I mean, at the end of this, I'd be surprised if he's still married. I mean, going a year where you have to live apart, he's a felon. The voting's not a big deal, really, but never owning a gun, all the money, the random drug tests, it's on his record. He's fucking screwed probably for the rest of his life. And I'm being inconvenienced enough to piss me off a lot for this. And that's just what you have to understand is going to happen whenever you get the government involved. At least that's the possibility of what's going to happen. It could have happened. They could have caught. I mean, I've heard of people who have killed intruders and they call the cops, and the cops come like, oh, well, he was an intruder. Good for you. Good. And they leave. Or they could come and arrest you for homicide and you could be put to death. I mean, depending on the state and the circumstances. That's just, or, you know, at least go to prison or be charged with manslaughter or something. The law is whatever they say it is. I mean, the technical stuff that's written down, it's so Byzantine, it's so voluminous that anybody can be punished in any way for anything. I mean, they can find something, and they can, if they decide to. And if they decide not to, then they don't have to. And of course, they selectively do this all the time to themselves. They just, I mean, politicians and bureaucrats, even very low-ranking bureaucrats, get, they have all the discretion in the world. They don't get charged with anything almost ever, and when they do, they get, you know, slaps on the wrist, and it's just the most blatant hypocrisy that you can imagine. It's very frustrating, and I'm just kind of pissed about it, so I made a video. So, oh, check out the shirt too. I believe this was made. The company, I got this at a website called Zazzle.com, and apparently they sell a lot of libertarian stuff there, and apparently they made this in honor of Obama passing the health care bill. They decided that was the last straw, and they weren't going to be nice anymore. So here he is. All hail the God King. Can't really. There we go. Just how they used to say Pledge of Allegiance, by the way. For those of you who didn't know. Fascist salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag. Well, it's been a while since I've said that. I'm not going to finish it either.